Hey guys, SpiderDevice here, and welcome to my 1000 subscribers special. I know I'm a little bit late on this, especially considering I'm now closing in on 1100 subscribers at time of recording, but hopefully what I'm going to show you today will be worth the wait. First off, let me just take this time to say how thankful I am for all of you watching this channel and staying with it throughout its life. For those of you that are new here, welcome, and for those of you that have been here for a while, from the superhero hype forums, real web tech, or wherever you may come from, thank you for staying with it. It goes without saying that I wouldn't have gotten to this point without every last one of you, so know that it is greatly appreciated. So as for what I wanted to do in this special video, I thought it would be best to do this 1000 subscribers special as a series of videos. Now originally I was just going to kind of integrate this concept into the new Web Talks video, but I thought it wouldn't be as in-depth if I just threw it into that. So I decided to make a series of videos detailing this topic. And this topic would be what I think is one of the most, if not the most, promising formula configurations that's come forth in a while. And what I wanted to do in this series of videos is go through completely in depth what it's made of, how it works, how it can be implemented, and how to make it. I'll still include this in the Web Talks playlist since it's kind of similar, but it's technically not really a part of that series. I know I've hesitated from making tutorials and sharing a lot of extensive information on this project in the past, but that's mostly due to the liability issue like I explained in my first Small Talks episode. But I think that at this point, the intelligent discussion I've seen about the shooter, the absence of any real problems up to this point, channels like The Amazing, The Spectacular, and Human Spider succeeding, combined with, of course, how grateful I am for you guys getting me up to this point, I'd be open to making more tutorials and making what I do effectively open source from now on, even down to this formula and showing you exactly how to make it. Now, the how to make it part might be coming a bit later since, as it would happen, some of the components are a little bit harder to get in my local area, and also the exact proportions of these aren't really nailed down yet. And I feel that a video like that would only be the best if I showed you how to physically make it. In fact, I might even just put that into the next project update. But hopefully the creation process will be a little bit more expedient this time around, and I'll hopefully have a little bit more time to work on this project and videos in the coming months. Also here doing this video jointly with me is Jack, who is a fellow member of the SpiderDevice website. He's been doing a lot of work with polyvinyl alcohol in relation to the web formula for some time, and it's his work that inspired the concept for this video. He's agreed to reveal the formula we've both contributed to, and that's going to be the main topic of today's discussion. He's also going to be talking about what polyvinyl alcohol does for this formula and what work he's done with it. So without further ado, my fellow slingers, let's get into this video. In this one I'm going to be going over what's in the formula and how it works. So the weird thing about this formula is that it's essentially just the combination of a component of my formula that I was working on a while ago and the formula of my subscriber and friend Jack, as mentioned before. Now before I get into why I was first excited about this formula, let's just get into a little bit of history and basic knowledge here. But before we keep going, let me just make it clear, I am going to make some very general and simplified points about cross-linking and copolymers, thus it might not be completely accurate the way I portray it. I just want to give you guys that don't know a whole lot about chemistry the chance to understand how the basic principles of the formula operate. So if I make a slight mistake or misnomer something, it's probably intentional for that reason. A while back, I made a post on Real Web Tech, detailing a formula I call micromembrane. If you don't know what Real Web Tech is, it was sort of the precursor to the current SpiderDevice website. Essentially, this formula was supposed to function by creating a membrane around a gel substance. When this was shot in a line or in a short-range spray, the cohesive parts of the formula would go forward as a sticky, stretchy substance, preferably in the form factor of the web line. However, due to the high pressure, this would burst upon impact with something, and spread the inner gel all over that surface. The idea behind this was that we could recreate the effect like in the Spider-Man films, where the line goes out but has the sort of wide net piece on the end, so that it can grab onto wider surfaces and have a bigger surface area to cling on with. Now the problem with this was creating a formula where these two components would separate naturally to form the membrane and the inner layers, and harder still was designing a spinneret to help enhance that effect. That's why I really never got to the desired potential of this formula. It's the same formula that I used in the last project update with the solidification complex. But it didn't seem to work in the exact fashion that I desired, especially with the low amount that I had left to test at the time. With polymers, we have a similar situation to the micromembrane and other formula ideas. We would have a single polymer and we would put in a bunch of other ingredients to try and enhance its properties. In the case of the micromembrane especially, not only did the ingredients not actually react with each other, they weren't even a completely homogeneous mixture. For those of you that are confused about what a polymer is, I think it's best explained in my Web Talks episode 2 if you're not familiar with polymers at all. But for those of you that do know about polymers, you may be surprised to learn that we can apply similar logic to polymers themselves in comparison to how we were looking at individual ingredients, so to speak, of a formula. This is through the concept of copolymers. These are just polymers that can form links between each other's chains. This achieves similar results to what I and many others were doing before, which is mixing various substances in order to gain the properties of each of those substances. The problem was mitigating the detrimental or unnecessary properties of each substance put in. With cross-linking of polymers, we can take the properties we want, like rigidity and elasticity, and make sure those are both present in the new substance, but we can eliminate the detrimental properties of those substances. One instance of this happening in the common world is spandex.
Spandex. Everything. Spandex.
This is created through the usage of 3 different components. The first 2 are polyurea, a stiff material, and polyurethane, a stretchy material. Polyurea makes the spandex strong and resistant to overstretching and breaking, while the polyurethane allows it to stretch to the degree that it does. However, these just complement each other and don't really have a detrimental effect on the other one. The third substance used to make spandex is a catalyst, which is another thing I'd like to mention here that I don't think I've mentioned too much before. A catalyst is a substance that, in short, allows a reaction to take place when it couldn't take place before. Basically, the catalyst lowers the activation energy for a reaction to take place. Simply put, imagine this. 2 substances would need a high input of energy, such as heat, to start reacting. But when a catalyst is added, the energy contained within that catalyst makes it so less external heat energy is needed for the reaction to take place. Now let me just say that technically when a reaction requires a catalyst, generally the reaction actually is taking place, but it's taking place so slowly and minimally that it might as well not be taking place at all. But for the purposes of a web shooter project, that's just arguing semantics. Now recently I was talking with Jack, the other individual who's contributed to this formula, and he was telling me about a formula of his that he had created. He's put these pictures up on the SpiderDevice website as well, so you can take a look there if you want, but this is what he managed to do, here on screen. He used a heating method in order to harden his formula. He mentioned that the solvent for his formula was water, and that the water had to be removed, in this case through evaporation, in order for this hardening to take place. Then it just hit me. If the water is the solvent of that formula, and it needs to be removed to make this substance stronger, could it then not transfer somewhere else, even to a different part of the formula essentially? This of course would be with the help of a heating system in some cases, depending on the type of this substance that's used. Now this substance is the ever-useful polyvinyl alcohol. It's a somewhat common substance actually, being in certain glues and some water-soluble fabrics. However, I must admit, polyvinyl alcohol, or PVA it's sometimes called, and its properties on its own are not really my forte. In fact, that's something that would be better described by the main man himself, Jack.
Hello all you slingers out there, I am Jack Baker, or Jackaboy if you go on the SpiderDevice website. I've been following the superhero hype forums for a little while now, and I've been experimenting with the research done by Iron Spider and White Widow. They talked about a polymer called polyvinyl alcohol that is water soluble and used in concrete as a replacement for steel due to its adhesive nature and crazy strength. Due to its amazing properties, I figured I had to try it. I bought some PVA powder on eBay and put it in a crock pot with some water at low heat. After a few hours, I had a thick fluid. The next morning, I noticed that there was a film that had been created where I poured the fluid into the container. As I tried to pull it off, I lifted the 5-pound crock pot. Now keep in mind, This fluid was slightly thicker than plastic wrap, meaning that it was able to hold all the weight with a very, very thin film. I tried tugging it off, I couldn't. The spoon that I had used to stir the formula had created this weird funnel-shaped film that I couldn't remove even with both hands pulling as hard as I could. I was elated. I took some pictures and I showed SpiderDevice and Grand Theft TARDIS, who, if you don't know who that is the most frequent user of the web shooter Chatsy page. I told them how I was really excited about the formula, but I was kind of bummed out because the plastic is kind of stiff and it takes really serious heat to evaporate all the water out of it. After discussing some of these issues with the two of them, SpiderDevice recalled an experiment that he was doing with spirit gum. I'll let him fill you in on the major details, but spirit gum is a mixed fluid that is composed of a strong elastic rosin and a few other additives. Because of the many different recipes for spirit gum, some of them have some wacky properties. There's one variety of spirit gum that either reacts with or absorbs water while hardening itself. We're not entirely sure which yet. This is super cool because if we can get the PVA solution to react with the spirit gum, we can harden them both with very little heat. Whatever spirit gum material interacts with water will ensure a composite that takes the strength of PVA and imbibe it into the elastic spirit gum. With the combined strength and elastic toughness, I would be super surprised if we couldn't make a shooter that would produce a web that's similar to that scene in Spider-Man 1, the Sam Raimi film, where he's pulling the Dr. Pepper and the lamp towards him. I bet it could be that strong.
Thank you, Jack. If the rest of you slingers are interested in what Jack is doing, be sure to swing on over to the SpiderDevice website. He promised to post any big project updates in the forum section there. He also frequents one of our chat rooms called Chatsy. He loves talking with people about his theories and research. I'll drop a link in the description for if you guys are interested. Finally, he's also thinking about starting a YouTube channel. I'll let you know when or if he does go down that route though. Now as for how spirit gum works, it's fairly simple. There are two main components, the spirit and the gum. The spirit is alcohol, generally ethanol or isopropyl alcohol. The difference here will just depend on the kind of spirit gum you buy, though an incredible few of them are going to have ethanol. The other component is the gum, which itself is going to have three components: resin, rosin, and silica. Now keep in mind, if you're going to be going down this route with this formula, you'll need the kind of spirit gum that has silica in it. Otherwise, the solidification complex of spirit gum in relation to water is practically non-existent. Spirit gum is generally used as an adhesive in theater and television. It's meant to be a quick, easily removed way to attach fake mustaches, wigs, prosthetics, and other special effects pieces to the body. How is it easily removed? Well, lately the so-called safer versions of the product use a remover, basically just a solvent that allows you to wipe away the spirit gum. This would be the variety without the silica, which is the kind we don't want to use. With the original silica-based formula, you would put water on the area, which would harden the spirit gum, allowing you to peel it away as a solid mass. We can use this property to our advantage because the addition of water isn't really all that hard to achieve. But that's not the only thing with this that we're concerned with. Spirit gum hardens in contact with water because of the silica within it. If you're not familiar with silica by name, perhaps you're more familiar with the little desiccant packets that you get out of shoeboxes or with clothes and things like that. In those little packets is a silica gel. Silica adeptly absorbs water, and this is why spirit gum with silica in it hardens with contact with water, and the kind without silica does not. Basically, you have a uniform mixture of silica, resin, rosin, and alcohol. When the silica expands through contact with water, the resin, rosin, and alcohol are still uniformly distributed within it, causing it to be effectively suspended within that gel. Also, some of the heat within that water will transfer to the resin and cause it to polymerize as well, due to the state that the resin is in. You see, the resin used in spirit gum is known as copal. If you don't know what that is, think about amber. I mean the stuff from Jurassic Park where the mosquitoes were found. This amber starts out as a thick resin from a tree, which, over time and exposure to heat and air, begins to become more reactive. With exposure to air, heat, and pressure, specifically the latter two of these, it will eventually polymerize into amber. In the in-between stage, so to speak, it's in a more reactive state known as copal. Since this is one of the main ingredients of spirit gum, we can use its properties to our advantage. The final component of spirit gum is rosin, which is a sort of waxy substance used on violins and bull riders' gloves in order to allow slight adhesion. Overall, it just keeps the spirit gum slightly tacky and glossy. Also, when rosin is heated up, it can provide some of the tackiness and adhesion that the copal and polyvinyl alcohol lose after solidifying. But that's not quite as important. Let's talk more about why this formula actually works. Remember what I said about copolymerization? Well, with the solidification complex of spirit gum itself, and the properties it gains therein with the contact with water, combined with the possibility of copolymerization with polyvinyl alcohol, a very effective formula could be created. What I mean is, if we combine a water-based solution of polyvinyl alcohol with spirit gum, the water could theoretically transfer from the PVA to the spirit gum, and the copal left within the spirit gum could react with the PVA to create a copolymer. But what about that reaction of copal to harden into the stronger amber equivalent that I mentioned before? Wouldn't we want the strength of that to be the property inherited by the copolymer and not the properties of copal itself? How can we get this to react if we need such high heat and pressure for that reaction to take place? Well, the shooter itself inherently has us covered with the pressure. The pressure needed for the advancement of the reaction of copal isn't so high that it can't just be achieved with the inherent shearing forces present in almost any shooter. However, normally, copal needs to be under conditions of around 230 degrees Fahrenheit for this reaction to take place. On the surface, this might seem out of reach, nearly impossible. However, remember what I said about activation energy? We can add a catalyst to help this reaction along. Just what catalyst could be used, you may ask? Perhaps we could use a metal oxide since they're fairly easy to come by, such as magnesium oxide. Sound familiar? Well, it might to some of you. If you remember, a few years ago I did a video on how to create graphene, which is a carbon allotrope with high tensile strength, and I made that with a reaction of dry ice. One of the byproducts of this reaction amongst the graphene-covered carbon flakes is magnesium oxide. Jack suggested that we use this, and realized that we might as well just toss in the carbon allotrope as well for the added strength anyway, since we'd have to dissolve the magnesium oxide off of it with water. But with this catalyst, we would even then still need some heat, we just wouldn't need as much as normal. It's much more attainable that way. So let's take a look at what we found here. A spirit gum containing silica, PVA fully or partially hydrolyzed, water, magnesium oxide, and graphene. These kept in two compartments, one containing the spirit gum and the other containing the rest of the constituents. You could also add xanthan and or guar gum in order to make the formula have better shearing properties, but it's not necessary here. The contents of each of these chambers are then pushed up into heating chambers to begin the catalyzing of the reactivity for copolymerization. These are then combined, agitated, and sheared through a spinneret. According to what Jack and I have found, this would produce a tacky, fibrous strand with high tensile strength, elasticity, and cohesion. What I'm trying to say is, this would produce an ideal web. If one could do some testing on the relative concentrations of these substances in the final product, the different hydrolyzation ratios of the polyvinyl alcohol, and the different beginning concentrations of spirit gum, that individual can find the ideal web fluid recipe. At least that's the theory from Jack and I. We both set out to test the formula and of course continue to test our own variations and test the individual components separately. But I really see a high potential for this formula. The next step for me is to get the supplies and create it. But that would require, of course, the creation of a suitable apparatus for extrusion testing. And I think I've got just the one in the woodwork. Anyway, when it comes to the formula itself, I'll let Jack have the final word.
Thanks, SpiderDevice. I appreciate you letting me come on your show. I'm a big fan of the work that you've done in building this community. You make it really easy to jump in and learn by keeping the resources and the key players all in one place. As for the spiderlings, new folks who haven't really gotten their hands dirty yet, I encourage you to research different polymers and plastics to use in your formulas. I decided on polyvinyl alcohol when I found that it dissolved in an easy, non-dangerous solvent and that it can be made as strong as steel with the proper chemical treatment. You guys might find a plastic that none of us know about that is superior in its properties and can contribute that knowledge to the SpiderDevice website. Who knows? Maybe 2 of you can find a blend that works better than the one we're working on. In the meantime, we will keep working on this new composite / copolymer depending on how the heating works, and keep you updated on any news on the strong polymer is drawn / extruded rapidly device. If you want to stay updated, don't forget to like and subscribe to SpiderDevice's channel. Leave a comment if you have any question that was left unanswered by either of us, and we'll respond as quickly as possible. That's all for me. Jackaboy out.
Thank you once again, Jack. I must emphasize this formula is largely the result of his work and dedication to this project, even beyond the bounds of what I've been able to put into it as of late. If it weren't for him, this formula and this video, they wouldn't have made it as far as they have. So thank you again, Jack. It is greatly appreciated. And all of you. Thanks to all of you out there who have subscribed to this channel and who have believed in and supported this project throughout the years. Rest assured, we'll keep doing what we do, and we have you to thank. I should be uploading some more videos soon regarding this formula and the shooter, as well as new Web Talks and Small Talks episodes. Until then, I'll catch you next time, Slingers. SpiderDevice out.